Welcome back to the our after the fire public meeting. Just want to recognize the Cobra Valley Watershed Partnership that is really putting this together. One important partner with putting this together is the Water Resources Research Center with Ashley Hullinger. We've got the Cobra Valley Watershed Partnership Executive Director Victoria Rocio, and we've been interacting quite a bit with the USDA Forest Service, Toronto National Forest, who had two presenters yesterday. We've got Adam Bromley here to speak with us today. Where we're going to be talking quite a bit about grass and fire today, have an opportunity to get together and have some conversation. Yesterday, we were talking a little bit about a culture of fire, and we have a novel fire regime here in the Sonoran Desert with the non-native grasses that have moved in. And so that kind of creates a novel need to create a bit more of a fire culture. And we're going to be learning this as we go along. So we'll be learning about these grasses from Ashley Hall, who is our range and animal area agent with Cooperative Extension. Talk about some of these issues. And then we've got some speakers, Johnny Stowe from South Carolina. We talk about how they deal with fire in a state that burns a lot. Another colleague who works up in Flagstaff, who's been doing a lot more burning since the Schultz fire. If you remember that about 10 years ago. And just have that discussion on how we can be getting fire on the land here as necessary to control these grasses. And bring back fire into the chaparral and other fire-prone or fire-adapted ecosystems. So at this time, I'd like to call up Adam Bromley. Adam, can you join me up here? We just want to kind of do a little brief on what we did yesterday, some of the highlights or things that you might have experienced and thought was important. And just lead us into Ashley Hall's presentation.
Yeah, so I think yesterday was actually to me it was a great session, great hours. I hadn't actually seen Mary's presentation or Kelly's presentation, so for me they were really good to see. And I'm not by any stretch a hydrologist or anything. I understand most of it just from some of my background, but to me, it was really nice to see that. And I'm a numbers person. I like data. So for Mary, be throwing up like some of the graphs and charts and things that she did, it was really nice for me. But I think we had a good start with kind of starting to have some of these conversations that we started with yesterday as far as a culture of fire, as far as, I think we kind of set the stage of like, okay, what happened, from sort of an operational standpoint a little bit on Telegraph, and then sort of the why, maybe some of the driving forces behind that Mary was really good at explaining, showing that patch size and lack of fire over the last, say, 50 to 100 years, and, or lack of, any kind of large scale fire. And so, that was, I think Mary did a really good job sort of setting the stage of the kind of why and where we were at. And then as well as Kelly coming in and really explaining how that, obviously one of the major drivers for here is Cobra Valley Watershed Partnership, which is, it's Arizona, right? So water is life. Without water, we can't live here. So, that having that water around is just understanding our hydrological function and doing what we can to try to take care of our watersheds is pretty critical in my mind. In fact, in my mind, that's kind of like probably should be kind of the number one goal is how do we have healthy watersheds, and looking at uses and compatible uses and things like that. And so I think yesterday really did set the stage pretty well, I think, for having these conversations going forward. So, you've kind of seen where we were at and then sort of the hint at where we're going, like we talked about at the end about, having fire is going to continue to be here. How do we look forward? Telegraph fire has happened. Yes, we're in recovery mode, but also how do we learn to live with these types of events? How do we make our communities more resilient? To me, that was right towards the end, and I was really glad that Mayor Bisich was able to come up from Superior. She actually had some fantastic words yesterday. I thought that were just excellent as far as, kind of how do we create our infrastructure that's more resilient? How do we make our homes more resilient, our communities more resilient to these types of events, knowing that we're going to continue having these types of events, and then knowing that it's going to continue. How do we look at our economies, our local economies, what's affecting those, and how these events, she mentioned 60 being closed multiple times, and how much that affects, our local economies. Great example of that I thought, I know we had one of the flood events, post-fire flood events, we got into post-fire flooding, had closed 60 down. I know the mine, Pinto Valley Mine in particular, was able to lend some equipment and get that road reopened really quickly so that we could continue, shipping. And obviously to them, that's a very critical piece of highway, so they can keep shipping and getting their product out and keeping people employed. So, all of that stuff that we talked about really towards the end of the day about resilient infrastructure and communities is, I think, probably, hopefully we can talk about that more today. And I think the other part of it that, but actually Paul, there's two Ashleys. Was really glad actually Paul was able to join us today for, we keep talking about invasive grasses. Everybody knows what red brome is. It's everywhere. That's what's driving a lot of these fires. We have rain, heavy rains and heavy grass crop. And, we kind of just keep talking about this invasive grass piece. And so I think that, how we understand that piece, and that's hopefully what Ashley's going to be able to do for us here, is to allow us to try to understand that piece a little bit better. Not saying that we can probably get rid of red brome. I don't think that's going to be possible, but how do we learn to live with it and what it does to our fire regime and what it does to our environment? I think is probably pretty crucial to us moving forward, is how we sort of learn to operate within our environment that has obviously changed.
That sounds like an excellent lead in to having Ashley Hall come up here.
Actually, first we're going to hear from Terry.
Terry. Oh, I'm so sorry. Bring her up here. Terry, I didn't realize we had you right there.
Hi, everyone. Thank you. I want to thank you for this opportunity to share my story. I'm not an expert. I'm not a community leader. I'm here to share the perspective of just one of the many victims of the Telegraph Fire. My husband Todd and I, we had searched the entire state of Arizona for a nice place to retire. We ended up in El Capitan, which, for those of you who may not know, is about a 20-minute drive south of Globe. And that's when we bought 40 acres of land and had a home on it. And that's where we were going to spend our retirement years. So in my first slide, Ashley, if you'd like to pull that up. The first slide shows our home is where the red arrow is. I'm not seeing the slide yet. The red arrow shows where our house was, and you can see the winding road off to the right. That was pretty much our driveway, and we're in the Mescal Mountains. And what we fell in love with are the hills and canyons that are filled with pines and juniper, manzanita, sugar sumac. We were loving all of this vegetation, and we thought the area was so beautiful. And the picture, it's hard to tell. I took it with my cell phone, but it was very green all the way up to the cliffs of the El Capitan. This is where we were happy to be, and we moved in, and 2.5 months after we moved in, that's when the Telegraph Fire came and burned us out. So on the next slide, it will show you the contrast. This is what the Telegraph Fire did. It took out our home and all of our belongings. It took out all of our plants And you can see it burned all the way up to the cliffs and all across those Mescal Mountains. There's nothing left. For the purpose of this meeting, I have 5 resources that we lost that I want to talk about. And the first one is food sources. We lost nuts, acorns, manzanita berries, and sumac berries. These are items I was looking forward to learning how to use in the kitchen, and they're all gone. And I don't know how long it will take for them to come back. Todd was looking forward to using the red manzanita wood to learn how to make bowls and cups and plates. And they're gone. There's no sign of manzanita coming back. The next thing lost was mulch. We were using, go back. The next thing we lost was mulch. We were gathering the dried leaves under the oak trees, using it in our compost, and we planned on using it as mulch in our future gardens. It's gone. We also lost possible sources of revenue from the manzanita wood. We could have sold the wood as raw material. Todd could have sold his goods. We lost firewood, especially that manzanita. I've heard that every blessing is a curse and every curse is a blessing. Well, that manzanita was a blessing in our wood stove, which was our only heat source in our home. It burned very hot. But it was a burden because when that fire came, it burned so hot, there's no sign of it coming back. We also lost safe passage on our roads and our driveway. Imagine rain falling on these gray hills in this picture. Go back. We're still on the previous screen. Go back the other way. There you go. I just am using this image to help people see that this is all barren. So when it rains even just a little bit, imagine how it sheets off of that burned ground. There's no plants to hold the mud back. There's no roots to soak up the moisture, no leaf litter to soak up the moisture. It all just runs down into those channels, and it becomes these awful flash floods of water and mud. It's very destructive and unsettling for us. Is we have several areas on our driveway there you can see that gets flooded, and this is what we're dealing with. So now if you'd like to go to the next slide, this shows what it does in one part of our driveway. It's not even safe to drive on with a 4-wheel drive vehicle. It's totally washed out and unstable. Fortunately, the county has stepped in and they're helping to maintain our roads in the community and our driveways to keep them passable. But I learned yesterday that these floods could go on for 3 to 5 more years, and I don't know how long the county is going to have the funds to help us to maintain these roads. The next slide shows another point on our driveway. This is a major issue for us. This is mud and rain that comes off of BLM land, and it took out our road right here. You can see our culvert is exposed, it's full of mud, and it brought down boulders. And I mean, look how small it makes our Ram truck look. It's a pretty big mess. The county does come in and clean that up, but I would love to hear from BLM on, are they going to help mitigate some of this flooding and these mudslides for private homeowners like us? In the next slide, this is a recent picture I took on our land. It shows in my mind that we're on a severe burn scar, at least in some areas on our property, where there's nothing coming back. Maybe a few little scrub oak branches are coming up here and there, but there are areas where there's nothing else coming up. The ground is still waxy or crystallized. The water just sheds right off of it. It doesn't soak in. So our neighbor's property slides down onto ours slides down onto the next neighbor, and so on. And these are the things that we're dealing with. So that's pretty much what I wanted to talk about with you today in this meeting. And again, thank you for letting me to come on. And I'm just one of many victims. There's a lot of victims out there, and each one has their own story. And I want to thank you for putting this educational event together for all of us. And thank you to the experts and the community leaders who are here today to support all victims of the Telegraph Fire. Thank you.